Let's begin with NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba, NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Tom Winter, Jake Sherman from Punchbowl News, and Ashley Parker from The Atlantic. Monica, what do we know about today's expected interview with Ghislaine Maxwell?
Well, we knew that this really started to become a reality a few days ago when Attorney General Pam Bondi says she directed Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche to seek out this meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, who is, of course, serving a 20-year federal prison sentence for multiple things as the co-conspirator for Jeffrey Epstein. Among them, remember, she was investigated and indicted in the first Trump administration, but she was convicted in the Biden administration of a conspiracy to entice minors to travel, to engage in illegal sex acts, conspiracy to transport minors to participate in those sex acts, transporting a minor to participate in those sex acts, and then also she was convicted of an entire sex trafficking conspiracy and the sex trafficking of a minor. So some incredibly serious crimes that obviously were investigated and for which she faced an entire trial. And there was no kind of a plea agreement or any other kind of deal back then. So the real question for today, Anna, is what could this meeting produce? What new information could come out of it? And it's really, really unclear. But of course, this has been a part of the Department of Justice's strategy to try to answer some of those calls from the president's staunchest supporters for more information. But it's really unclear to those of us who've been reporting on it and even to experts what this could yield apart from the fact that they can say that they did it.
So, Ashley, I mean, it's important to look at the broader context here because the players are all related or connected in a different way. President Trump's former defense attorney is interviewing his one-time friend about another former friend's sex trafficking and abuse of children. Deputy AG Todd Blanche is also friends with Maxwell's attorney. The two have chatted on a podcast and been real chummy. If the president is trying to give himself cover, are these the players to do it?
Well, Todd Blanche, as you point out, is in a somewhat uncomfortable or at the very least unusual role in the sense that he is going down there as an emissary from President Trump's Justice Department, but as President Trump's former defense attorney, he also would seem to have a vested interest in protecting President Trump from something Maxwell could potentially say that could be damaging to him, which is not the same role you would play as a member of the Justice Department if you were just simply trying to get the most information out of her as possible.
And Tom, Maxwell has been charged with lying under the oath, right? So, you know, can she be trusted?
Yeah, let me just read to you what the Department of Justice previously said, including the prosecutors who oversaw her case. It's alleged in the indictment in 2016, when the defendant was given the opportunity to address her conduct with minors in the context of a civil suit, she lied repeatedly. The judge in her case talked about the fact that at sentencing, she did not accept responsibility. They've called out her statements in the past as brazen lies. We know when the FBI went to search her home after she was taken into custody, they found her phone wrapped in tinfoil in an effort to avoid law enforcement detection, according to them. Also bought that home, by the way, under a different name. And in the course of their pretrial investigation, they found that she was not truthful about the foreign bank accounts and the money that she held in the millions of dollars overseas. So this is somebody that the Justice Department has well documented in the past, leading up to her trial. Her lack of candor with them at best, outright lies at worst, and in fact charged her with her. Those charges were ultimately not pursued once they already had the conviction in the sex trafficking case, and she had been sentenced to the 20 years. So her record in the eyes of federal prosecutors in Manhattan is well established. What will happen next as far as what she could possibly offer today? Obviously, that's something that future reporting will build out. One group who hasn't been interviewed, Anna, are the victims. So if you're going to try to figure out maybe what happened, you might want to talk to the victims of the crime as the Department of Justice, where you would normally speak to the people that are looking for justice, and in this case, the victims. It is our reporting and public statements from the attorneys that none of those interviews have happened over the last couple of months.
And so, Jake, Republican lawmakers are not letting up. They are clearly not following the president's strategy to limit talk about Epstein. The congressional subpoenas for Maxwell now guarantee that we'll be talking about this for weeks. How striking is it to you that the president can't seem to control Republican lawmakers on the Epstein issue?
The president's lost control of his biggest power base, which is the House of Representatives. I mean, this is not his biggest power base in terms of voting representatives, but it's his biggest power base in terms of political actors in the political system. House Republicans are teaming up with Democrats to get more information, to get the Epstein files, to depose Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. I mean, this is a massive story that the White House, and I'll be honest with you, the White House has not given any cover to House Republicans to go the other way. And I think the striking thing is this is not an issue in which Republicans are just doing this because they're eager to go against Trump. This is because their voting base, their constituents have been drummed up for years on the idea that Jeffrey Epstein was the centerpiece of a large and sordid conspiracy, including child sex trafficking and a variety of other sordid acts that went deep into the government and deep into the Democratic Party. And now Donald Trump, who has perpetuated some of these ideas, is now saying, actually, don't worry about this anymore. It's no longer an issue. That doesn't fly with a lot of people. And I think lawmakers are under a tremendous amount of pressure to get more information and to get more intel and to depose and to get documents that would help expose and show all of this.
Ashley, without falling into the administration's trap of taking the focus off Epstein, we can't ignore how unprecedented it is what Tulsi Gabbard is doing. Can you put that into perspective for us?
Sure. I mean, she has come out and has accused a former president, one of Donald Trump's one-time rivals, of treason. And she is claiming, without evidence, basically, that the Obama administration lied about Russia's interference or Russia's meddling in the election. And what she's doing in some ways is she's conflating two things. She's saying that Russia did not, for instance, hack into voting booths to change votes. That's true. That's not what the Obama administration or the intelligence community found. They found that Russia did meddle and try to interfere, not necessarily successfully, but in the 2016 elections with an eye towards helping President Trump. They also found, she has some other information, that the Obama administration did want to finish the assessment quickly before they left office and put some pressure on the intelligence community to do so. But again, there's nothing that's interesting, but there's nothing treasonous, certainly, about doing that. And this comes at a moment when the administration, as we have been discussing, is desperate to try to change the tune from Epstein. And this is a very comfortable place for Trump to be and his supporters to be attacking the former president, his rivals, the deep state, the intelligence community. That seems to be what this effort is about more than any sort of legitimate facts. But what's interesting, as Jake was discussing about Trump really losing control of his clearest Republican base in the House of Representatives, is this hasn't proved the distraction that they've hoped it to be.
Well, there is also new developments on the Hill, right, that keeps us talking about it. There's new reporting that keeps us talking about the Epstein issue. Monica, the president's transparency in all this is under new scrutiny today after this Wall Street Journal scoop, a new scoop that came out yesterday. Walk us through it.
Yeah, so the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, informed President Trump in a briefing back in May that his name did appear in the Epstein files. Now, that is something that our own reporting indicated was likely the case, given that they were friends for that period of time. And the president has repeatedly and adamantly denied any kind of wrongdoing here and has tried to distance himself more recently from Jeffrey Epstein. But the reality is that if that meeting did take place in May, as the Wall Street Journal is reporting, and we know from Department of Justice officials that they do concede that they at some point briefed the president about the overall findings of their investigation and their inquiry into this. The president said something else when he was asked about it quite specifically by a reporter. Take a listen to how that exchange went.
Specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing.
So the president did deny that recently, though, again, the Wall Street Journal reporting that that's exactly what the attorney general had told him. The White House, for their part, Anna, is trying to dismiss this as, quote, fake news. And remember, the president is suing the Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones, and Rupert Murdoch, its owner, for that other story that NBC News has not independently confirmed about the letter he allegedly sent to Jeffrey Epstein for his birthday more than 20 years ago.
And yet they're not backing off of continued reporting on this issue. Jake, when asked about Republican Congressman Tom Massey's push to release all Epstein documents and the discharge petition, which Speaker Johnson apparently tried to avoid, Massey used a Southern bless his heart. How deep is this GOP rift? And is Speaker Johnson in trouble if he can't get Republicans? Oh, it was Johnson who used the bless his heart, talking about Massey. So clearly what the point is, there's a big rift, right, between Johnson and members of his party. Help us understand that rift.
If it was only Massey, it would be one thing. But the bigger problem for Trump is that it's some of his allies. Brian Jack of Georgia, who worked for Donald Trump in the White House in the last administration, is a close ally of the president, voted for a deposition or for a subpoena yesterday that would take the documents from demand the Justice Department turn over those documents. If it were just Massey, this wouldn't be a problem. It's much more than Massey. And as for the speaker, I don't know what kind of problems Johnson is going to have. Trump has turned on basically every other speaker who has worked with him, Paul Ryan, Kevin McCarthy, in various ways. And he hasn't turned on Johnson yet. But again, this is in my view, and I think in the House Republican leadership's view, this is a problem that the White House has not given a lot of cover for Republicans on. I mean, they've just part of the problem, the rift is at least being exacerbated by the White House and their inability to give any political cover to this story.